Hello, this is Craig Parkin. I want to welcome you again. I wanted to share with you my fish pond that I built, and it brings me great pleasure and joy. Here in Chiang Mai, it gives me a chance to relax. There's all different kinds of fish. I don't follow any pattern. I just enjoy the whole mix of them. And over here we have the Ping River, which is a real special river in Thailand. This goes all the way from the north to the south, all the way to Bangkok. And they used to do all of their wood and their lumber, the sandalwood and the teak, and they would float them down this river. And periodically, they still find in the mud these huge trees, sandalwood and teak wood. And today we're going to talk about how to get everything that you want. And I promise it is interesting. Today, I think it's one of the very most important things that we could talk about. I think that having you get what you want sincerely and truthfully is about the most important subject that I could speak on. And it's something that I've learned a great deal about in my studies throughout my life. I started this process when I was about 19 and have taken all kinds of seminars and read all kinds of books and done everything I could to learn about it because I really have been intent on getting what I want. A little bit of my background, I've traveled over 75 different countries, all over, listening to people, learning, and loving the travel because it opened my perspective. I did about 3 years of high school and started quite a few businesses. I've had over 20,000 employees in my life, and I've had the pleasure of building some wonderful businesses and also a hotel and a teak house and just things like that. And I can tell you specifically that what I'm going to tell you today is how I did it. And if you'll take on what I'm saying, I can guarantee that you can get what you want. The first thing that I want to do is share a poem that I heard because it carries so much about what we're going to talk about today. It goes like this: you will be what you will to be. Let failure find its false content in that poor word, environment. But spirit scorns it and is free. For it masters time, it conquers space. It cows that boastful trickster chance, uncrown and fill a servant's place. For the human will, that force unseen, the offspring of a deathless soul, can hew away to any goal. The walls of granite intervene. Be not impatient in delay, but wait as one who understands. For when spirit rises and commands, the gods are ready to agree. Now, what this means to me and why it's so important, let's start with the first one, because that's going to be our first subject. You will be what you will to be. I don't believe that you can will to be something unless you specifically define what it is that you want. If there was one thing that I see people make the biggest mistake on in not getting what they want, is not actually knowing what they want. I can tell you that I think about 65% of the battle is clearly defining what you want. You talk to people and they go, "Oh, I'm not happy. Why aren't you happy?" "Oh, I want more money." "How much money?" "Oh, I don't know." But no, wait a second. If you don't know how much money, how do you know when you've got it? How do you know if it's really working? How do you know if it's really solving the problem? So for me, a goal is not a goal unless it takes place in time and space. So let me explain what that means. If I say I want more money, that doesn't take place in time or space. If I say I want to have $100,000 in my savings account in 1 year exactly from today at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that is a specific goal. Time, I've laid the date and I've laid the time. Space, in my bank account. So what I want you to do, if you're willing to take this on, and I beseech you to please take this on, I want you to write your goals down specifically in time and space. So I'm talking about write 1 month goals, Write 3-month goals, write 6-month goals, write 1-year goals, and write 5-year goals. And I want you to write them in the area of finance, personal, education, travel if you're inclined, the things that are important to you. That's for you to define. But again, write them in those times. And please write down what I'm saying if you're getting a vibe for it, okay? If a plane takes off from Honolulu and it's going to San Francisco, there's a direct line. It only stays on course about 4 or 5% of the time. So it's a constant correction. It gets off course, it gets back on course. It gets off and it's constantly correcting. You don't say, oh, it's making a mistake. No, it's correcting. That is how I want you to approach your goals. Unfortunately, most human beings, if they're taking off from Honolulu and they want to go to San Francisco, they get 10 degrees off and they're like, you know what? I'm pointing the wrong direction. I'm going to go to Seattle instead. But then what happens? They get 10% off and then they go somewhere else and then they go somewhere else. Correct yourself. Find out what you have to do to get back on that course. And you know whether you're on course or not. I know you. I know you have a sense. Because if you've already spent this much time listening to this, you actually do have the ability to sense it, because anybody else is going to flip down and go on to something else. So I can guarantee you that if you've gotten this far, you've got it. Stay on your goal. Now, what keeps people from making goals? What has kept you from clearly defining what you want? I can tell you what it is. Fear of failure. If you don't define it, then you're not a failure by not getting it. So everyone I know gets confronted by their goals because that little voice inside of your head, oh, that's too much, you can't do that, and it's so difficult. Blah. It's just throw up. It's just useless little voice in your head, noise. Lose it or do it anyway. That's better, because the little voice is not going to go away. It's still going to be difficult to do your goals and you're still going to have self-doubt around it. Do it anyway. It's an important for everything that we're learning. Do it anyway. Do it even though you have self-doubt. Do it even though you have inner judgment. Do it even though you're critical of yourself. Do it even though your friends around you, if you share your goal, and I'm one of those people that believes you can share or not share whatever feels best for you. But if they say, are you crazy? You could never do that. I'm in this country or the economy's this. Do it anyway. You don't have to buy into negative self-talk. But if you do buy into it, you're going to get exactly what that self-talk is telling you. So now going for your goal and getting what you want. If you choose, after really looking at it, to change your goal, you can change your goal. You're not a failure because you decide from your own choice and your own inner sense of what is right for you, but not because all of a sudden it's not working. Okay, if it's just not working, figure out what it takes to make it work. And I can't tell you how many times I've written down the goal that in my head I was telling myself, oh, there's no way, that's way too much money, you could never do that. What do you mean a house like that? I find my goals, I did more than what I had written down. I did more than what I said. You have the ability to do that. Now, in that poem that I said, it's one of the most important things that I've ever heard in my life, and I want to repeat this part of it. It said, it cows that boastful trickster chance. So what is that? Cows means to put down. Most people, 90%, 95% of the people that I see, their life is dictated by their circumstance. And it's a tyrant. Do you understand? When you put your circumstances in charge of your life, it's like putting a little child in the driver's seat of a car. So in what it says is, the human will, that force unseen, the offspring of a deathless soul, can hew away to any goal. So you don't put your circumstances in charge of your life. You notice them, you look at them, and you go, so these are my circumstances. But you make them uncrown and fill a servant's place. You make your circumstances work for you. You don't work for your circumstances, because then you are dictated by the world. And in case you haven't noticed, the world is crazy. The world doesn't care about your success. Everyone is worried about their own selves and their own things. You've got to make your own way. The good news, you have all the capacity, all of the power, and everything that you need to be able to get those things that you want. You have so much more ability. You have so much more resources. Just your phone. Your phone alone is more resources than anyone has ever had in the history of our planet. If you go back, the biggest place for information was the library at Alexandria, and it was burned and it was destroyed. They can't do that with the internet now. So you can go to any place, you can hook up with all different kinds of people that share your goals and your aspirations and can be positive. Everyone's all down on phone and screen time, and I understand that, and it's something to deal with. At the same time, it is the greatest resource that we've ever had. In your phone, the computer is more powerful than the computer that they used to go to the moon. So I would like to suggest that you make yourself use it in a positive and successful way, and stop being a victim. Stop being a victim of your own inner voice. Now, maybe you don't know what I'm saying when I say that. I think that if you close your eyes and listen, you'll hear an inner voice. I think everyone has one. And I'll say to people when I've been talking to groups, I'll say, what is that little voice? And somebody will raise their hand and say, that's me. And I said, oh, what if I could see a computer printout of everything you've thought in the last 3 days? And they always kind of cower. I go, oh, you'd be embarrassed, right? Because of the violent, the sexual, the weird, the bizarre, right? Because that little voice, in case you haven't noticed, is totally insane. I know yours. It's insane. Mine is insane. It says the wildest stuff. It has one job, and that's survival. So it's constantly looking for threats to our survival, trying to think of something. Oh, well, what about that person? And what about this? And why don't you do this? And what if you do that? And like when you look in the mirror, you're always finding what's wrong. Why? Because you're looking for your own survival. You're trying to find what's not right. So you have to take control of that inner voice. And you know how I can tell you that you are not that little voice? Who's listening? If you were the little voice, you couldn't hear it. It would be like fish, what water? No, who you are is an infinite, eternal, spiritual being who doesn't truly exist in time. Time is a delusion. So right here, right now, you can say to your little voice, oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing. That's an interesting thought. I know you're just doing your job. Now, you may think you're crazy for talking to your little voice, but I think you're crazy for listening to it and giving it too much power. I dialogue with mine. If my little voice is making me insecure, or inviting me, I should say, to be insecure, I'll say, what are you trying to tell me? Is there something I'm not seeing? And then I'll actually look, and many, many times I can learn from that. And I can say, oh, okay, so if I handle this in my life healthily and successfully, will you back off on the constant repetitious thought? Yeah. Actually, you can have a dialogue with your inner voice, and I highly suggest it, because that puts you in touch with who you really are and who you're really not. And I want to promise you, you are not that little voice. And I'm going to leave it at there today. If you've gotten value from this, I ask as a personal favor something. I think that what I'm saying, not because I'm saying it, but the words and the feeling and the experience is something meaningful. And if you got value from it, would you please have the courage to share it with your friends? Because I think the more people that get this, the better the planet is. And I'm not asking for any money. You can't join anything. It's just the words and just getting it out there. I will say, if you want to buy the book, my book is out there. I think it's about $2.50. And if anybody doesn't have the money or a way to do it, please drop me a line and I'll happily send you a free copy. In the front of the book, there's 10 questions where we talk about your childhood and your first experiences with money and getting what you want. And it really fits in with what we've been talking about today, because you get to see how you start to identify the success of who you are as a person with the things on the outside and getting other people's approval. And anyway, I just want to thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to hearing from you. I will always answer every comment. Take care.